Okay, in this video we're going to be looking at Unit 4A, which is talking about taking control of your finances. So in this entire chapter 4, we're going to be looking at financing and money and those type of things. But we're going to start it off kind of on a personal level, taking control of your finances and just some of the basics. So here's just a couple of things to keep in mind. When you are controlling your finances, one is knowing the balance in your bank account. Obviously, having the internet has really helped people become hyper aware of where their bank accounts are. But knowing that, so you avoid, if you ever write a check, bouncing a check, or having a debit card declined. Keeping track of spending. This is a one that I've read many different articles about that a lot of people do not do, is keeping track of your spending. And that's a great way to control your finances, is taking a look at what's going out, where you're spending, and what tendencies you have. Okay, impulse buys, be careful on those. Take a moment, think about it, because impulse buys can be extremely costly to your finances. And probably one of the most important is make a budget and don't overspend it. And if you do, compensate. If you overspend 1 month, try and pull it back 1 month, the next month. So let's take a look at just this example that I have here for us. So we've got some guy named Earl here. So Earl is very busy with school and work. He usually does not have time to take lunch to work, so he eats out 5 days a week for lunch. He also eats out 2 nights during the week, or during that work week, because he does not have time to make dinner for whatever reasons. On the weekends, he's so tired from school and work, he eats out twice, so 2 more times. So if you look at that, we've got 5, 2, and 2, so he eats out 9 times per week. Now each time Earl eats out, he spends an average of $6. Okay, that's, he could be going out for a lunch one day and just grab a couple things off the dollar menu. On the one evening for dinner, he could spend more, but it averages out about $6 a week. So we're looking at $6 per week. Earl feels that it's only $6 and does not cost that much in the long run. We want to find out how much does it cost Earl over a 1 year period. So the first thing we're going to look at is, how many times does he actually go out to eat? So he goes out 9 times per week. So he goes out, so we'll say 9 times out for every 1 week, times by, and I need to cancel this out from week to years, so I'm going to put years in the bottom, weeks in the top, and there are 52 weeks for every 1 year. So weeks will cancel, and we take 9, multiply it by 52, and that's going to give us 468 times out every year. So 468 times every year, so hopefully you can see that that's going to add up quickly. And now we're going to take 468 times out per year, and we're going to times that by our $6, and that's going to give us $2,808 per year. So, you're the judge as to whether or not this is expensive over a 1 year period of time, but $2,800 is pretty expensive to be spent on fast food and restaurants or whatever. And so little things, and you can apply this to getting drinks every day. If you're used to going out and getting a fountain drink, or getting a little snack here and there, these things can add up quickly. So when you're taking control of finances, be careful. These are small impulse buys, but they can add up quickly. So that's just an example of how to watch things in your finances where they're small each time you do it, but over time they can add up quickly. Okay. So some basics of budgets. Now it says in here, as you can see from example 1 and 2, we basically looked at just one example. But one of the keys of deciding what you can afford is knowing your personal budget. So knowing what's coming in and where certain expenses are going to be going out. Knowing that information is huge. So when making a budget, that just means keeping track of how much money you have coming in and going out, and then deciding what adjustments you need to make, because some months things may change, or you may not be bringing in as much money as you thought you would, so you have to make some changes. So here are some 4 basic steps. Determine an average monthly income, especially if you are on a commission where you make money on sales and those type of things, and be sure to work off of an average, not a high. And next, you need to determine your average monthly expenses, and also be sure to include things that don't occur every month. They may only occur a couple of times a year. Like if you're in college, tuition, books, or vacations. Sometimes insurance, you pay your insurance some people pay it every 6 months, some people pay it every year. And then also around the holiday time. Holiday times, you seem to see a lot of people see a large increase in expenditures around holidays. And so averaging those things out over the entire year and putting that into your budget is wise to do. Next thing is to determine your net monthly cash flow. And that is, you subtract your total expenses from your total income. Hopefully that is a positive number, because a negative cash flow means you are putting out, you have more money going out than you have coming in. And then the last thing is just make adjustments as needed. If you anticipated, $75 a month in a power bill or something like that, and first month comes back at 80, and then the next month comes back at 90, and then it gets hot in the summer and it comes in at 175, you would definitely need to make some adjustments there. But the simple key to budgeting here is just spend less money than you make. As long as you're coming out with positive cash flow, things will be okay. If you can maintain that. Much easier said than done, but that is definitely a simple key to budgeting. So now we're just going to look at some questions here, some examples, just in general life that you might run into. So the first thing we want to look at is decide whether the following statements make sense, or is clearly true, or if it does not make sense, and explain. So the monthly cash flow was, for some individual, negative $150, which explained why this person's credit card debt kept rising. Okay, that would definitely make sense, because again, cash flow is you're subtracting your total expenses from your total income. So if you have a negative cash flow, that means that your expenses is exceeding your income, and so if you're doing that on a credit card, your credit card debt is always going to keep rising if you are spending more on your credit card than you're able to pay down. Okay, next one. My vacation cost a total of $1,800, which I entered in my monthly budget as $150 per month. So if it was $1,800 and we divide that over 12 months, 1,800 divided by 12 is 150, and so this would be $150 for every month. And so this makes sense because that divides out properly. So if you were going on a trip that you anticipate costing $1,800, you would want to be budgeting out about $150 a month in order to pay for that trip. So that would make sense. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is interest payments, especially when you take things out on credit, borrow things. There's usually interest that is attached to that. So in this one, we're going to find monthly interest rate, and this definitely pans out and plays out in your cash flow, because interest is an expense, and sometimes it can be a very painful expense. So we want to find the monthly interest rate in each of the following. If an annual rate is given, assume the monthly interest rate is 1/12 of that, so we're going to take it and divide it by 12 if it says the annual interest rate. So in the first one, we have Brooks Credit Card has an average interest rate of 21%. Okay, that's where credit cards hurt. Those interest rates could be high. So she has 21% on her unpaid balance, which averages $900. We want to find the monthly interest paid. So the interest is going to be her principal or initial balance times by her monthly rate. And then when we look at simple interest, this is we're looking at its times time, but in this case we are looking at a year, so t is always going to be equal to 1 when you're looking at just 1 year. So really for this we're going to be looking at interest is the principal or the amount of money that is being owed times the rate, and again that rate is going to be per month. And then t again is always going to be in years, so when you times by 1, because we're looking at just the single year or the single month, we just don't worry about time right now. So if it's 21% over a year, well, we need to take, to find our interest, we need to take the balance of $900 times it by 21%, and whenever you're doing these calculations you want to change those to decimals. 21% is 0.21 over 12 months, because that's an annual interest rate. So when we multiply 900 times 0.21 over 12, you'll get $15.75. And that's how much you pay in interest in 1 month on a $900 balance. Okay. And so if you can see, if on that credit card it said, minimum payment due is $35, if you only pay the minimum payment and you accrue this much in interest, then hopefully you can see that almost half of that minimum payment goes towards interest, and so paying down a credit card would take an extremely long period of time. So there's just something to be careful of. Okay, the next one, we have Sam bought a new TV for $2,800. He made a down payment of $400 and then financed the balance through the store. So in this case he financed $2,400 because he paid $400 down. Unfortunately, he was unable to make the first monthly payment and now pays 3% interest per month on the balance. So we want to find out how much per month. Now again, this one says 3% interest for every month. So the interest is going to be that principal or that initial amount of $2,400 times by 3% he has to pay on that TV. And when I multiply 2,400 by 0.03, that's $72. Okay, so $72 for that month because missed payment and had to start paying interest. And think about it, you're paying for your TV while you're watching your TV, and it's not actually going to the original cost, it's just going towards interest. So interest can be a very painful thing and something you definitely want to account for when you are budgeting. So that we'll just call that part 1 of this section or this unit, and we'll get back part 2 here soon.